hecharim. Me'ayin Yahweh Ezri. Esainai. Hecharim. Me'ayin Yahweh Ezri. Ezri Me'im Adonai. Osei Shamayim V'aretz. Ezri Me'im Adonai. Osei Shamayim V'aretz. I lift my eyes up to the mountains, and what is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, and God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming now and forever. Amen. L'kol zman ve'et, l'kol chefetz tachat hashamayim, to everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak. It has been so incredibly difficult to watch Neil over these past years as his body betrayed him. Trapped in his body, his mind as sharp as ever, the pain so evident and so debilitating. If we believe, as I do, that the soul is separate from the body, that the body is merely the vessel that contains it, then today we bury only the vessel. His soul is finally freed from all that was shattering and breaking around in his body in that vessel. And still we are shattered. Neil was an incredibly good man. He was, I think, the very definition of a mensch. He was kind, both in words and his deeds. He never had a bad word to say about anyone. He had a keen interest in people. Had he not been a lawyer, perhaps I think he would have been a sociologist, because he loved to study people. He loved to get to know them, to engage with them. If you rode an elevator with Neil and you didn't know him when you got in, by the time you got down to the bottom, he knew you. He connected in that way, deeply and meaningfully. He had an insight into you. Neil was born in Thunder Bay, Ontario. His father operated a clothing store and owned the building that it was located in. Maybe that's where Neil learned his property and building management, landlord stuff as well. It was a very small Jewish community with one Orthodox shul where Neil had his bar mitzvah. He moved to Vancouver to pursue his law degree at UBC, where he met Donna, his partner and soulmate of 46 years. Donna, in all that we will say about Neil this morning, and many are going to speak, just as much can and should be said about you. You cared so lovingly for him. As his health declined, the active life of travel and socializing that was your passion together was put on hold as you turned all of that energy and all of that time, all of that incredible skill and organizing ability into caring for him. You made your home comfortable for him. Special chairs and pillows, access to an elevator so he could easily get in and out. And when it was no longer sufficient to ease his pain, you moved him first to Sunrise and then eventually to the Weinberg, where you were by his side every single day. Donna, you are an Eshet Chayil. You are a woman of valor and a true blessing in his life, as you are in ours, and as I know that he also was in yours. We pray that the outpouring of love and support from our community today, from our incredible sisterhood, of which you are a past president, from your circle of family and friends, we pray that that brings in some measure a little bit of comfort and peace for what we know is for not only you, but the entire family, a very difficult and painful time. As a lawyer, Neil was highly regarded. He did important work for many clients, including his work to help settle refugees and new immigrants. Again, that part of Neil that got to know you and was interested in you, he would get to know a little bit of the language of the immigrant family that he was helping to settle, and then able to speak with them even in just a few words. He did this so they would feel comfortable and welcomed. And Neil loved his family. His siblings, Joan and Marilyn and Jack, his brothers-in-law, Bruce and Don and Ken, his sisters-in-law, Libby and Micheline, his nieces and nephews, Vincent and Janice and Jillian, Christopher, Sam, and Teddy. All of you have things I know you want to share. All of you have memories and stories. And so we want to leave time for many of you to share. Did I miss any names in that list? I hate doing lists, but I worry that I missed somebody. Did I? Bruce, tell me who. Gabby and Layla, I'm sorry. And Montana. Okay. I apologize for that. And so we want to allow space and time for all those to share, or as many as can. But first, Rabbi Brown is going to share a psalm with us and her own memories and thoughts about Neil.
Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenachaleni, nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet, lo irara ki ata imadi, shiftecha umishantecha, shiftecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged sorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta vashemen roshi, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed, yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti bevet Adonai, v'shavti bevet Adonai, leorech yamim. I invite you to read together the English translation inside your program. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. I was always fortunate to see Neil once a month at least at the Weinberg and the Briar, where we hold a monthly tea for our Temple Shalom members who reside there. He, even in his later years when he didn't have a lot to say, he always had something to say. There was always a comment or an insight, a memory. It's incredible to know the spirit of someone and how they continue to influence the world even in their age and in their incapacity of their body. I like to think about Neil and the way that he will continue to influence our lives through the stories that we share of him and through the values that he brought into the world. As Rabbi Dan mentioned, there are so many stories and lessons to learn, and I want to invite his nephew and niece, Vincent and Janice, to come up to share a few of their memories with us.
My sister, Janice Rahi, and myself, Vince Kruger, are the niece and nephew of Neil. We both want to thank everyone who is here today to pay tribute to our uncle. We both respected and loved Neil and would like to share a few words and memories of him. Thank you. Neil and Donna never had children of their own, which is part of the reason Neil spent so much time with us when we were growing up. Neil had a huge heart and loved all of his nieces and nephews and grandnieces and nephews immensely.
Neil was known to all of us as a kind, gentle, soft-spoken soul. He never spoke a harsh word, judged people, or demonstrated aggression. Always keeping his composure and seeing only the good in others was what made Neil special. His fondness for humanity and empathy towards others was evident in his actions. When Neil was practicing immigration law, his relationship with his clients extended beyond a professional relationship. He made efforts to learn the basics of their mother tongue in order to ease their anxiety and showed a genuine interest in them as individuals rather than a case number.
Neil, I'd say, more than, he was a man of the people. He readily accepted people from all backgrounds without prejudice. He had a keen interest and curiosity in all cultures, races, and religions. His interest in other faiths was certainly nurtured by his involvement for over 10 years with the Brotherhood Interfaith Society. This was an organization which facilitated the exchange of ideas between various faiths and helped foster an understanding of the differences and similarities of the faiths. Neil was a model peacemaker, making a difference well ahead of his time.
Upon hearing of Neil's passing, I began to reflect upon my childhood, trying to recall my first memory of Neil. In doing so, I discovered my first memory of Neil happens to be my first memory of anything. I could not have been more than 2 years old. I sat in my high chair and Neil started playing peekaboo with me. His affections for us were always evident. Memories of him taking us to parks, movies, plays, and even memories of him babysitting us were always with love. And then he carried on these traditions with our kids.
This juncture, I'd like to share some special memories that I had of Neil when I was a youngster. I will always cherish memories when I was a young boy of 5 or 6 years of age, when Neil would take myself and a few friends to the park to throw a football to us for hours on end. These experiences as a youngster had a great influence on my life, and I believe were very instrumental in me playing football at a very high level for 12 years. I guess in retrospect, I have Neil to thank for having a bum left knee due to an injury suffered in junior football. Another very early memory of Neil was him forcing Janice and I as youngsters to go for walks after family dinners. These were not ordinary walks. They were special. There was a choice of many routes which Neil frequented. In fact, he numbered them. He had numbers and sub-numbers of the routes. In fact, you might say he was very enthused about which route we were about to take. In fact, there was always much discussion emanating around which route we were going to take and debate before the route. When I think of it now, Janice and I, like I said, we're very young at the time, under 10. The only logical reason that we went for these walks, because we knew that by the end of the walk, Neil was going to take us for ice cream. So that was kind of the bribe. Ice cream, by the way, for all of you who know about Neil's culinary taste, was one of the few foods he did not put Tabasco sauce on.
We always assumed that Neil would be a lifelong bachelor because at the age of 35, he was still very much single. Thankfully, all of that changed when he was set up by a mutual friend to meet the very sophisticated, kind, and beautiful Donna Rowan. Donna wasted no time in changing Neil's bachelor ways.
His apartment was clean after. It was a well-kept secret, talking about meeting Donna, that Neil and Donna would wed. Unfortunately, a young lad of 12 years of age overheard Donna and Neil discussing as to when it would be appropriate to announce the upcoming wedding. The boy got very excited and asked, "Are you getting married?" and was abruptly told, "Shh," and was sworn to secrecy. But this boy was yours truly. And naturally, I kept the secret, and then when the engagement was subsequently announced at our home later that evening, I feigned great surprise. At that moment, at the age of 38, Neil's life was forever enhanced by such a beautiful, refined, intelligent woman, our Donna.
Neil's love of family, together with Donna's, was demonstrated by the numerous family gatherings they generously hosted without reservation in their warm home. We'll always treasure the memories of backyard barbecues, pool parties, engagement parties, wedding celebrations, Passover dinners, birthday parties, you name it, they hosted it. At many of these gatherings, Vince and I were often summoned to Neil's office, where he attempted to give us his worldly belongings, such as paper clips, pens, pencils, erasers, etc. To appease him, we dutifully accepted the artifacts, which had never seen the light of day since. In fact, this practice would repeat itself with our own children, as Neil provided them with many envelopes filled with arbitrary articles to read, more writing instruments, stamps, or random bits of bobs, predictably at every family gathering. But all joking aside, Neil's sentiment ran deep. He would light up when reminiscing about family. That is why parting with his things such as birthday cards, letters, and other tangible memories of people and places that were emotionally meaningful to him was so difficult.
I will always remember Neil as a gentleman without a mean bone in his body. He never, ever had a negative thing to say about anybody. He was not only a loyal brother, he was a doting uncle and a loving husband. We will all miss Neil greatly. It has been a very difficult few years watching Neil suffer. His mind was willing, but his body would not cooperate. After all of his suffering, He's now out of pain and in a better place, a much better place. Neil, rest in peace. We all love you.
We should all get comfort in knowing that Neil isn't really far away at all. His spirit remains in our hearts every time we think of him. So I want to say, Neil, wherever you are, I hope you are enjoying fountains of chocolate, engaging in the love and joy of dogs, and have found an audience to entertain with your repertoire of endless jokes that amused us for years. Goodbye for now, Neil, and thank you for all your kindness. We will miss you.
And before we leave, we just want to thank Neil's caregivers, Emmy and Lanny, were at his side the last 2 years. Wonderful, wonderful caregivers, and they were over the top as far as the care and attention they provided to Neil. And we want to thank the Weinberg staff for their care of Neil. Thanks so much.
Marilyn?
Thank you all for being here today to remember my brother Neil. Neil was my big brother, as he was to our sister Joan and our other brother Jack. From the day I was born, through my teens and into my adult life, Neil was always there as a caring and loving sibling. I was 16 when my mother passed away. Neil, who was 31 at the time, could see that I was struggling, and out of concern for my welfare, made arrangements for me to live with him. We moved into an apartment in Marpole so that I could finish grade 12 at Churchill. We later found a place in Kerrisdale to make it easier for me to get to UBC. I left the nest that Neil had so selflessly built for me after 6 years. I don't know of many young bachelors who would voluntarily take on their teenage sister, but Neil wanted the best for me and made sure that I was well cared for. Such was Neil's good-heartedness that he was happy for my best friend to live with us for our final year at UBC. He cheerfully put up with our giggles and nonsense, and even seemed to enjoy being mercifully teased by us. Neil loved his family a great deal, and I know cherished the time he spent with us. We were all special to him, and he was always interested in our comings and goings. I can remember when, as a little girl, I complained to my mother that Neil was bothering me with lots of questions. I thought he was being nosy, but my mother's response to me was, "He's just interested, dear," and he was. I have many lovely memories of Neil and of the times we spent together. For example, before Neil and Donna moved out of their home on Wilshire Street, I helped Neil sort through the vast collection of memorabilia he had gathered over the years. He had old letters going back decades, hundreds of photographs, newspaper articles that he planned to get around to reading someday, etc. He even kept all of his bar mitzvah cards and insisted on reading each one with me before they went to their final resting place. This was a labor of love for both of us, and through these various bits of paper, I was able to learn a lot about my big brother and his many interests and accomplishments. Joan, Jack, and I are grateful to have had our brother Neil in our lives, and will miss him terribly. And I too would love to thank Lonnie and Emmy particularly for the wonderful care they gave my brother over the last few years. He didn't have an easy time of it, as you know, but they did all they could to make him comfortable and to keep him safe. And also to all the other staff at Weinberg who contributed to his well-being. Thank you.
David Varty is Neil's law partner.
It is a hard thing to accept the loss of a very fine person. One wants him to go on forever. What we can keep are the parts of Neil that he left in us and that he taught us by his example. As Neil's law partner for 25 years, I learned much from his wisdom and his manner. Neil had people skills that were inspiring and a pleasure to experience. His integrity made it easy to work with Neil. There was simply complete trust. I could always be confident about all the matters that we worked on together. There were moments when he would come into my office to tell me something. It was an incident, an event, a story. I would listen intently to the serious tone and the events that he was telling me. Partway through, I would detect a slight twinkle in Neil's eye. As I smiled, I could see Neil's serious face breaking slightly as he tried to restrain a smile. Then I realized I had been caught as he delivered the punchline of a joke. The accolades about Neil's professional work came from many places. From S. Spoke at the Port of Vancouver. Not only have I found your legal advice to be of considerable value in the strict technical sense, but I also felt very comfortable with the competent way in which you maintained and developed many important external contacts, often of a delicate nature. From Kurt Neunfeld at the Immigration and Refugee Board. In my experience, Mr. Ornstein was always well prepared and diligent in his representation of his clients. As well, he was invariably one of the most professional and courteous counsel to appear at refugee hearings. From Gordon King at the Immigration and Refugee Board. Claimants seldom spoke English, and many were unaccustomed to the formal nature of the process. There were moments of tension and misunderstanding at many hearings. Mr. Ornstein was a model of professionalism and integrity at all times. From Rachel Allen. The services I was provided were more than I could have expected. I'm glad I chose to get Vardy & Company to represent me in my claim, because I never could have anticipated the result that was achieved. Thank you so much for your efforts on my behalf. Neil had a 52-year career as a lawyer. He had remarkable success in every turn in his career. I was impressed throughout at how Neil was always learning new things. When he moved into immigration law, he had soon mastered it. Then I witnessed him meeting his clients from many different countries and saying hello to each of them in their languages. It seemed that he had learned greetings in a dozen or more languages. To practice law is to face many challenges. There are difficult situations, difficult clients, difficult legal principles that align for or against a client. I went often to Neil to ask him about troublesome situations that I was dealing with. He had a way of giving advice that set me on the right course. To talk of Neil's career is only one aspect of his life. We were colleagues and friends. I came to know Neil's kindness, respect, fairness, and generosity. Over and over, he would treat me to a lunch with the Lions Club, where he volunteered his time to help the community. Repeatedly, Neil organized theater events for his nephews and my children and Brian Rudy's children at the Metro Theater on Marine Drive. There we would roar with laughter at the pantomime shows. We returned to his home where Donna had treats for us to eat. Neil and Donna invited us over in the summer for swims and barbecues. I have long felt my good fortune to have known Neil for the better part of my career as a law partner and friend. His influence will always remain with me.
So you've heard of this really extraordinary individual as a spouse, as a sibling, as an uncle, as a businessman, as a law partner. All of it true. I want to spend a few moments talking about Neil from the point of view of where he lived, literally. You see, the Ornsteins and the Bregmans lived on Wilshire for about 20 years. They were neighbors 4 doors away. And while I would certainly see Neil here in the synagogue with Donna, it was really the impression that I have and the experiences that I had with Neil as a neighbor. Usually walking home from work and passing us, and I would be out with one of our dogs. Neil had this wonderful relationship with dogs. It was approach avoidance. We would do a cha-cha as he would come up, and we had this wonderful golden retriever named Goldie. And he really wanted to pet Goldie. And Goldie just wanted to lick Neil. But Neil was a little reticent, but still wanted to get in there. And so back and forth between Goldie and Neil, we did this dance probably 2 or 3 times a week. It was wonderful. There was the occasion on a Friday night. We just completed services. And as I was walking into the social hall, I see Neil coming in with a sergeant of police. Neil says, "There's the rabbi." And the sergeant comes up to me and says, "Rabbi Bregman?" "Yes." "Is this your neighbor, Mr. Ornstein?" I said, "Yes." "What's he doing with you? Because he should have been in shul." He said he would accompany me here. We have an incident at your house. Could you gather your family and please meet us at the house? So Kathy and Jordana and Shira were here, our oldest, Shai. This is, 18 years or so ago. He wasn't with us at the time, that he was out with some friends, and we get home, and to find an entire SWAT team on my front lawn. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Your alarm went off." I said, "Well, this looks like a very good use of taxpayers' dollars." "What do you mean the alarm went off?" He says, "Your alarm went off." I said, "And every time the alarm goes off, you send a SWAT team?" The sergeant said, "When you have a synagogue that had a first attempt at arson and you told us and we didn't take note of it, and the second time destroyed the entire synagogue, when your address comes up, Rabbi, it is flagged." Oh. and we just want to make sure that everything is okay. What are we going to find when we open the house door? And I said, you're going to use a key, right? If we have to, okay. Well, our dog is inside. Please don't shoot the dog. At which time Neil said, did you hear the rabbi? Don't shoot the dog. Because Neil was now taking a proprietary interest in Rocky. I'm sorry, in Goldie. Rocky's our newest. Our kids loved coming to your place on Halloween. We never knew what crazy outfit you guys would be in. And I would usually come back to the house, and always the question was from one of the other children, have you been to the Ornsteins yet? What are they doing this year? I said, you got to go down and take a look. It was always something new and something crazy and something wonderful. This is the type of individual, in addition to everything else that you know about this individual, that he really was, as Rabbi Moskowitz said, a mensch, an incredible human being, filled with love and compassion, filled with a sense of wonder, and also sending me articles and articles to read. And always usually about human rights. Because from his very soul, he exemplified the very best of our tradition. A concept of tzedakah, of righteousness. A concept of tikkun olam, a repairing of the world. A concept of welcoming the stranger into our midst. He took those values of his family, those values of his tradition, those values of growing up in Thunder Bay, and never forgot how important it is, the relationship, Adam ben Adam, between human beings. We are here to remember, and we are here to honor. And has been said, we cannot let this moment pass without also honoring his Besherta, his soulmate, for so many years. You were there with him through every stride along the way since the time you met. And how proud he was of you, Donna. Absolutely filled with a sense of beaming when he would talk to me about you. We thank you. We thank you for all that he gave us and for the family that shared this incredible individual with this community and with the world. May he forever be at peace. And may you, his precious family, know healing in the days to come. Amen.
We rise for El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfecha Shechina, Im Kiroshim Utechorim, Kizochar HaMakir Mazkirim, Et Nishmat Michael ben Yitzhak Vagita, Shechalal Olamo, Baal Harachamim, Yastirechu, Berseta Kanathar Olamim, Vayitzur, בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Neil Ornstein, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us
Amen.
say, Amen.
Please be seated for just a moment. Some brief instructions before we leave this place. From the sanctuary, we'll proceed in procession down to the Temple Shalom Cemetery in White Rock. There are directions to the cemetery on a table as you leave. The cemetery is located at 14965 28th Avenue in White Rock. There will not be Shiva tonight here or this afternoon after the cemetery. The family will return privately to their home for the meal of condolence. Services tonight and the saying of Neil's name for Kaddish is an early service tonight at 6:30. Shiva Minyanim will be Sunday and Monday evening at 7 o'clock here at Temple Shalom. At this time, I'd like to ask the pallbearers to come forward to stand by the casket. Vincent and Janice, Ken, Dylan, Nader, and Jan. The congregation could please rise.